Welcome to the Front Porch Podcast. Join us as we uncover the extraordinary stories of people who are part of Front Porch communities and services. Young professionals just starting their journeys, lifelong learners pursuing new passions, and seasoned storytellers sharing the wisdom they've gained along the way. Together, we'll explore how purpose and community shape us with stories that will inspire you to discover your own unique contribution. Views expressed by guests on this podcast are the opinion of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Front Porch communities and services. Please see our show notes for more details. I'd like to start this episode with a couple quotes from residents who participate in our Sense of Place program that helps us as an organization understand what is it that makes community feel like home. People know who I am, and I don't mean what I'm doing, but understand my personality quirks, and they accept me for who I am. And that's a gift to be comfortable. It's an existential comfort. Another resident said, "The way this community supported me in the multiple significant challenges I faced, people are so sensitive to what you're going through, what to ask and what not to ask. And it was remarkable to watch people hold me while I was going through that." This reminds me of why I'm so excited for this conversation with Dorothy. I met her over lunch when I was visiting the community, and she inspired me with how engaged she is and how much she cares for people living in the community, residents and team members. And I love her personal mission that's been a golden thread throughout her life, which is not to be served, but to serve, to find ways to contribute. And that speaks to what makes our community so vibrant. We have people from all walks of life, lived experiences, cultures, uniting together as a community. We have retired CEOs, mothers, grandparents, social workers, nurses, activists, teachers, and people are bringing their ideas and their opinions. And sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes there's strife. Sometimes there's challenge. And that's part of life. That's part of what keeps us interested, engaged. But I know that all of these people and voices uniting together and sharing in this mission to create community where everyone feels they can belong is such a beautiful thing. And Dorothy is the perfect guest to share what that journey and what that adventure of building community and culture can look like. Our guest today is Dorothy Astorga, a native Californian who comes from a migrant family of 10. She spent most of her early childhood traveling with other migrant families, following the crops from state to state. She graduated from the University of the Pacific, majoring in administration and supervision of education, then worked as a teacher and administrator. She enjoyed working with parents and students who were new to the United States and focused on helping them maintain their language and culture as they adapted to their new home. Fluent in English and Spanish, Dorothy lives at Fredericka Manor in Chula Vista, where she teaches Spanish and organizes the Culture Club for her fellow residents. Dorothy, welcome to the Porch.
Thank you for inviting me.
I'm particularly excited for our conversation because we had lunch together at Fredericka Manor a few months ago, and our conversation has stuck in my mind, and it's really important for us to be able to share your experiences with the world. So let's go.
Let's go.
So let's begin at the beginning. Could you tell us a little bit about your childhood? I think that it shaped a lot of who you are and how you see the world. So tell us about your beginnings.
I come from a family of 10, and we were basically migrants. I think the first memories I have was under a fig tree, and my mother was starting a fire to heat up the tacos she had prepared early in the morning. We were usually out in the fields by 6 o'clock in the morning.
It sounds like you were picking cotton and working at a young age.
Oh, yeah. And it was apples, oranges, lemons, cotton. It was lettuce, celery.
What was day-to-day life like?
We all contributed in one way or the other. We all shared. Moving, depending on the crops, what state we went to. And we had I would say, a community where we would be helping each other, whether it was setting up the tents where we lived, or whether it was, finding a place where we could cook. And, so it's sharing a boxcar.
When you were little, sharing was how you survived.
That's right.
I have to say, it sounds like a hard life. You mentioned setting up tents. I mean, it sounds challenging, yet at the same time, the continuous thread was that you had this sense of community.
Oh, yeah. To me, it's always been very much part of my life throughout my whole life. That we needed to be in a community. We needed to be with groups. That we were able to share even babysitting for each other. I think the only thing that kind of, I don't know, it was kind of chaotic, was having to go from one school, and all of a sudden the next day we're moving to another school. And I was at this school for a period of time, and they had asked me to work on a play, to be in a play. And the play was The Princess and the Pea.
Mm.
And, it's so funny that, we worked so hard on trying to put it together. But then we had to move just before we put it on stage.
Oh,
and
no. You didn't have your moment.
I didn't get to be a princess or meet my prince, though I remember his name. His name is Billy. I mean, that's one thing that always stuck with me. But they were very good experiences, growing up. And I actually dropped out of school in 7th grade and got married.
You got married in 7th grade?
Yes.
What led to that? We have to stop here for a minute. What led to that?
Well, I think when you grow up in such a situation, you grow up very fast. Yes, I did get married at 7th grade. I don't say that too often. Number one, it's not really believed half the time, but that's all right. I was fortunate that my husband was a true believer in education. One day he came home with a typewriter and a book for me to learn how to type. And I says, "What for?" He says, "You know what? You're too smart, Dorothy. I don't want you to spend your time working out in the fields." He says, "So you need to learn something. And you really need to go back to school." I was quite an avid reader when I was very young. So that kind of made me develop a love for reading, for education. He talked me into going back to night school. I says, "Well, I don't have to go to night school. I can just take a test. I think they say that you can go to the adult school and take it." He says, No. You need to go to school." So I did go to school, actually graduated, and I was very fortunate because I had very good mentors from him, but also from some of the teachers that I had and the professors that I had. I was the only one in my family who actually graduated from school. And I says, I'm going to make sure my kids and my grandkids, and thank God they're all college graduates.
You paved a path.
Yep. And one of the professors, when I received my AA, the professor says, "Dorothy, there's a new program at the university, and I want you to apply." I said, No. They have a lot of papers and all that. I'm not going to apply. I'm done. I'm going to see what job I can get. I can type very fast, so. No, he says, "You're going to go." And the program is called the National Teacher Corps program. And then I said, "No, I'm not going." I says, "It's like too hard. I have to work and I have to do this." I said, No. He says, that man literally took me across the street, helped me fill the papers and all that. So I became part of the National Teacher Corps project.
So you grew up in community. Even though that community moved around, you still had that connection with people mm-hmm. you cared about, people who cared about you. And then that continued. And did that help grow you into an activist?
I think it did, because I saw a great need. Part of the National Teacher Corps program was that you had to work in the community. It also, it made you, it wasn't easy because we went to school half a day and worked at a school half a day. And in the evenings, we worked in the communities. So it wasn't just for them paying our school or what have you, but it was a 3-year commitment that once you graduated, you would teach in the low-income school areas.
Dorothy, what kind of needs did you see that you felt so compelled to respond to?
Number one, I've been always very close to the migrant community because that's where I came from. The fact that they had to go out in the fields, because there was no other choice. The lack of understanding, I would say, as to what the real needs of the kids were. And a lot of it came, I think, from the fact that some of our teachers were not accustomed to working with kids from diverse communities. At one of the schools, when I first became a teacher, I set up, again, a culture club. So just teaching the kids, even songs and dancing and what have you. I'd bring in pictures of their heroes, and we talked about them. We talked about where they came from.
So they could see themselves.
Yes.
And the schools weren't meeting that need.
No.
What was the impact of that need being unmet?
What they used to say, well, they're really not college material. It wasn't that. It's just that they had other skills and they had other needs first. The first school I became a principal in was a challenge, big challenge, because it became a multilingual, multicultural school.
Dorothy, how did you set up a school to meet all of those different needs of the humans and the cultures?
You have to be very creative. I was fortunate enough because it was going to be it wasn't a magnet school. It was just a school that was going to be dealing with a multitude of languages, you name it. And with some students who had no experience in school. The Hmongs didn't even have a written language. I was allowed to hire people that weren't necessarily already in the educational system. So that to me was very rewarding. I hired a Vietnamese pilot who was more or less fluent. He was fluent in French and Vietnamese and English. So I hired people from their community to help me help them.
That was your strategy.
That was my strategy. We had Mandarin-speaking teachers, Spanish teachers, we had Vietnamese teachers, we had Chinese teachers, we had Filipino teachers, you name it. Most of them had some training, and other ones were just people who were willing to be part of our community.
Was there a benefit to all of this diversity, all of these different people and backgrounds and languages all in one community?
God, yes. Because I believe, sharing part of your culture is very important. So I was able to celebrate Cinco de Mayo, the Chinese New Year's, the Vietnamese New Year's, and we all learned a little bit about that. We learned some of their songs.
We know that really important aspects of culture and building culture are to have shared rituals and shared experiences. Is that what you were doing with a lot of intention?
Yes.
Yes. Very
much so. It makes me emotional that it really made the kids proud of who they were.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because in some cultures, we're kind of shy away, sometimes even from our language. But no, the kids there, they were fluent in their language and they became fluent in English. They went to college, they graduated.
Everything that you're sharing is about the strength of diversity and how it helps people to understand their uniqueness and also to understand the power of bringing unique individuals together in community to uplift everyone. I mean, that's how we think of community at Front Porch. Tell us about your experience at Fredericka. You started a culture club there. Tell us, what was the precursor to that?
When I arrived here, I wasn't a happy camper, okay, to put it nicely. Number one, I did not wish to move to a retirement community at all.
Why not?
Well, I looked at it as, that's a place for old people. And my daughter turned around and said, Mom, you're old. Which she says, oh, okay. So I said, no, I don't want to go there. My husband had just passed. After 73 years of marriage, it was really hard to be, by yourself in a huge house with my kids, one in Europe, the other one up in Northern California, and the other one here. And so the one from here, from San Diego, says, I can't be going up to Los Angeles. If something happens to you, you have to move. So they all agreed I had to move. So when I came here, I said, oh, okay, Dorothy, there are not too many people of color here, but I spent, I would say, maybe a couple of weeks just what I called having a pity party in my room. So, so what am I doing here? I'm not happy here. I met the young lady who runs Life Enrichment here, who encouraged me, and she said, would you like to go help? They're starting a Spanish club, and they really need someone who's a native speaker. He says, wouldn't you like to go? And I says, well, I'll go and check it out, but I'm making no commitments. I said, I'll go and assist. And here I am, 2.5 years later, teaching Spanish, not one class, 2 classes a week.
Wow.
So I think that kind of got me going. I says, okay, it's all right to be here. There's a possibility that I can do something here. So I got this crazy idea, why don't I bring cultural activities in here? So then I said, okay, how am I going to start this? Because when you come in being basically an outsider and you says, I'd like to start a culture club. Would you come to a meeting? So they come in there. Number one, it took me forever to get across what culture meant to me.
How did you do that? How did you describe it?
I told them what the objective of the group would be to enhance our cultural understanding and to celebrate the differences and the uniqueness of each resident that lived here. That it was important we got to know each other because everybody that lives here has a quality within them or has a gift that they can share.
Dorothy, I have to say, I think that one of your superpowers, and I think you have many, is to see the uniqueness and to celebrate the uniqueness in each individual. That seems to have been a thread that we can pull through your life story, that you really, truly see people and then help them see themselves.
I always look for diversity and inclusion. To me, that's very important. That I like to see an individual as a human that has something to contribute, something I can learn from them and that they can learn from me. And being able to be accepting of our differences.
Yes.
And at that initial meeting, he says, oh, yeah, we could, talk to the kitchen. We can change food. We can have some cultural displays. We can bring movies once a month about different cultures. I says, okay, how am I going to do this? How am I going to start this where they kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about? So I came up with the idea of having a hoedown.
A hoedown?
A hoedown.
Okay.
And it was intentionally, because was something they could kind of relate to.
What does a hoedown look like exactly?
It's called a hoedown because in one part of our country, people used the hoe. They worked a lot with the hoe as they worked with the ground, to make, that's...
In the soil.
That's right.
Okay.
And so after they came back from working out there, they would have parties in the barn. So that was a means for them to celebrate, to get together as a community again.
Just like you said, building culture and community, celebrations and rituals. This theme continues.
Yes.
I heard hoedown in a Beyonce song, so I know a little bit about the term, but now I really understand it.
Where it originated.
Yes.
I do try to do my homework. We have very, very smart residents.
Yes.
That, they hear something, they'll go out and do the research.
You got to stay on your toes, huh?
Yes.
So the hoedown went well. Then what?
In any activity that I bring to the community, there has to be an educational part of it. It's not just bringing in, dancers and just singing and that's it. No, there has to be a part to it that actually takes place there.
What's the thing you're most proud of that you've achieved with the Culture Club so far?
I think the most touching and proud is seeing people who hardly ever left their room come down to the cultural celebrations. And there's this one gentleman that I've known since I first moved here who's in memory care now and doesn't cooperate much or participate is the word I would say in anything. Well, he came to the hoedown. He danced all the time he was there. He was having such a good time. That's what's important to me.
That's inclusion.
That's inclusion. That's diversity.
Yes.
He's Latino. To see their happy faces, to see their participation, to see them say, wow, I didn't know that. I remember once we brought a jazz and blues group to play and all that. And they explained where the music comes from and all that. some of the residents, as it was over, as they were leaving, says, "Boy, I won't have to take my medicine today." She says,
It's joy. You're
I
bringing
feel
joy
so
through
good.
culture. Yes.
But
Incredible. How else has this culture club impacted Fredericka Manor? You said that more people are now participating in community. What else are you seeing?
I would say there seems to be more acceptance of the diversity, I think, in their own personal life. And I try to bring things that are relevant sometimes, even to today. We recently had the children from Ukraine come.
Oh, Dorothy.
I mean, just it touched their feelings, touched their heart. Okay, because we had the children singing, the children dancing, and the message that they brought was in their own language. So I mean, things like that I think are so good for our community, not only here but everywhere else. So.
And you're expanding community by inviting others into community. What about team members, people who work at Fredericka Manor? How has your culture club impacted them?
I think I can use it as an example when we first celebrated the Day of the Dead. And I saw a lot of pride in them. To me, that also made a big impact on the total community, to the point that we have now residents who create their own altar in their own home. And that helped them understand death and the celebration of that we do in other countries. They say, I was able to celebrate the death of my relative. I can do that every year now because now I understand. So it has made an impact. Also, in terms of participation of staff, we had, for the Day of the Dead, we had some staff members bring pictures for the altar as well.
It's an openness to trying new things, to learning.
It's like Dorothy learning what is it this podcast is.
You're doing great. Now you can say you've been on a podcast. Add that to your list of achievements. So you said before that, I don't want to move into this community of old people. How's it going now?
I have to thank the staff. I can't, I think also the fact that the leadership here has also been very, very wonderful for allowing me to do what I think I can share to the community, and their willingness to put up with my craziness, I say. But I mean, Ben, who's the director here, and Life Enrichment have been so supportive, and so has the staff. Even the kitchen has been, okay, we're going to do this. Okay, what do you want us to contribute, or things like that. So it takes the community, it takes the village to make it work.
But I also see joy in how you are an activist and an advocate and a culture builder.
I am happy here.
How do you think about yourself now?
I was brought up to believe that we're giving some gifts in life, and they're given to us to share.
Purpose.
And we're here to serve, not to be served. One thing I've learned here, I think I finally found me.
How have you found you?
And I say I found me because I could say almost I feel free here to share what I have. Because helping others to me is also helping myself. When I started teaching Spanish, we have a lot of fun in that class. I mean, the oldest student I've had was 103, and I think the youngest was maybe in early 80s. But what can I say? I get emotional, so.
You're free to be fully yourself. That's what makes you so beautiful.
Thank you.
Would you say something in Spanish to your community members on this podcast?
¿Qué les puedo decir? Que tenemos solamente una vida. Y hay que aprender a vivir.
What did you say?
We only have one lifetime, and we need to learn how to live it and share.
You're giving other people this path to freedom, to be fully themselves, to embrace who they are uniquely, to share their beautiful language, to speak in their language, to feel that pride. Thank you.
Thank you.
You are indeed a culture builder. We're very lucky that you live at Fredericka Manor as part of our Front Porch community. Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. You've been listening to the Front Porch Podcast. I'm your host, Anna Hall. Our theme music was composed by Joe Von Snare and Diane K. Enrique. Carmen Elena Mitchell is our producer and editor. Our recording engineer is Jeff Gall. Frederica Manor tech support provided by Rhonda Hernandez. Special thanks to Laura Darling for production and marketing support, and to Joseph Escobar for our show art design. The Front Porch Podcast is a production of Front Porch Communities and Services. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please share it with a friend and help others find us by subscribing and leaving a review. We'll be back soon with more stories from the fascinating folk who live and work at Front Porch. Until then, stay connected and inspired.